In this video, we're going to go ahead and talk about the order of operations. So in mathematics, some operations are more powerful than others. So that requires them to be performed before other operations. So we need to learn which operations should be done first, second, third, and so on. So we have this guideline, which is the order of operations, which tells us which operations are the most powerful and must be done first. So the first one is parentheses, and it looks like this. We could also have brackets or braces. Now with parentheses, you're simplifying what's inside first. This is key. So we have to simplify what's inside first, and then once everything inside is simplified, we can drop the brackets. And then we move on to our other steps. So the second step is going to be exponents. So this is raising something to the second or third power. So for example, if we have 8 to the second power, exponents are the little numbers in the upper right-hand corner. We'll talk more about those later, but essentially they tell you how many times to take the larger number and multiply by itself. So for example, 8 squared is really 8 times 8, or 64. Now, once you've gotten rid of all of your exponents, you're going to move on to multiplication or division from left to right. So this gets a little bit of a confusion on what do you do first. A lot of people assume you do multiplication first, then division, but unfortunately that's not correct. We have to do multiplication or division from left to right, whatever comes first between these two ideas. So let's say you had 2 times 8 divided by 4. Because multiplication came first from the left, we'd have to multiply first and then divide. Whereas if we had division first, so let's say 8 divided by 2 times 3. I'm just making up these problems. And since division came first from the left, we'd have to divide first and then multiply to get our answer. So be careful. Multiplication and division have the same power since they're inverses of one another. So that's why they're done from left to right. And the same thing applies to addition or subtraction. They have the same power level. So they're done from left to right as well. So let's go ahead and run through a few examples just to kind of get a feel. Now with the order of operations, you're taking this step by step. Sometimes I like to write my order of operations out on top just to remind myself PEMDAS, or you may remember it as please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. I learned that back in, I think high school. It's been a while. So parentheses, exponents, multiplication and division from left to right, and addition and subtraction from left to right. So when we're looking at this first expression, 7 minus 3 times 4 minus 2, just a little fun fact, if there's no operation going on between a number and a parenthesis, it's an implied multiplication. So what should we do first? Well, according to order of operations, we have to do parentheses first. So I'm going to simplify what's inside those parentheses first. So 4 minus 2 is going to be 2. Now, since everything inside the parentheses is simplified, I can drop the parentheses and change that operation to a multiplication between 3 and 2. I use a dot for multiplication. We tend to stay away from the x simply because that gets confused once we move into algebra with the variable x. Now, as we look here, we have subtraction and multiplication. Well, multiplication comes before subtraction, so we need to actually multiply these first. So 3 times 2 is 6, and then last but not least, we're just going to subtract those to get us a value of 1. Let's give the next problem a try. And you can pause this video at any time and try these on your own and then come back and just make sure you're on the same page. So here we have 6 times 5 minus 3 times 4 squared. So if I'm looking here, parentheses would come first, but there's no parentheses. So then I'm going to move on to exponents. So let's go ahead and square that 4. So remember, we're just writing down the rest of the problem and then squaring that 4. So 4 squared is 4 times 4. It's the base, the larger number multiplied by itself. So it's actually 16. Now, once we have those exponents done, all we have left is multiplication and subtraction. Now, the multiplication is stronger than subtraction, so we're going to do that first. So 6 times 5 is going to be 30. And then 3 times 16 is going to get me 48. Last but not least, let's subtract those. 30 minus 48, that's going to leave you with a negative 18. Okay, and that's completely simplified. Quick note that here they say evaluate the following expressions. That's similar to simplifying the following expressions. They mean the same thing. So let's move on to one more example. Here we have 8 plus 2 times 2 plus 5 minus 6 cubed divided by 2 times 10 minus 3. Now, it looks intimidating, but we're going to break it down using our PEMDAS, our order of operations. So I'm going to start with my parentheses first. So I have 2 sets of parentheses. Bing, bang. And I'm going to simplify both of those to start off with. So 2 plus 5 is going to get us 7. And notice that as soon as I simplified what's inside, I dropped those parentheses and I just left that multiplication. Continue to drop down whatever's not in parentheses, and then we'll go ahead and simplify. 10 minus 3 is 7 as well. And again, I dropped the parentheses as soon as I simplified what's inside. Now looking here, we have addition, multiplication, subtraction, exponent, division. Well, what comes next is going to be exponents. So it looks like we need to simplify this 6 cubed. Now, 6 cubed is telling us that the base needs to multiply by itself 3 times. So it's really 6 times 6 times 6. Or if we use our calculator, 216. And yes, you can use your calculator in this class. It's not a problem at all. So we replace 6 cubed with 216. And then we look, okay, all of our exponents are done. There's no more exponents. So we're going to move on to multiplication and division from left to right. So from the left, I'm going to start with multiplication. So 2 times 7 is going to get me 14. Then I have division. Now division comes before the multiplication from the left. So I'm going to do this division first. 216 divided by 2 is 108. And then we'll go ahead and multiply those two numbers. So 108 times 7 is going to give me 756. Now, all the multiplication and division are done, so we move on to addition and subtraction. So again, that's from left to right as well. So we'll start with addition, 8 plus 14. Minus 756, going to leave us with a negative 734 as our final answer. Okay, go ahead and practice using the order of operations on some of the examples in your notes. And then in our live classroom, we'll practice some of these concepts some more.